Hello, chat. Right, can you guys hear me? We good to go. Audio's peaking, so that should be it. Let me know if you guys can hear me, and we'll fire into this. So, I don't want to start off on a spiel or. Okay, audio check, audio check. Can anyone hear me? Can you guys hear me? Source of the media is not playing, is it? Close that. Open that. Audio check. Yes. Okay. Audio and video good. So, this stream is completely unscripted, totally off the cuff. This is stuff that's happening right now. So I'm going to be playing this in the background. That's not the object of this. I'm going to be bringing up stuff onto screen as it comes. But for people who are not aware, there is apparently a just completely out of the blue Black Swan event in South Korea. The incumbent president, President Yoon, appears to have enacted essentially a self-coup d'etat in Seoul. Now, I know the very basics of South Korean politics, so I think a lot of this, I'll probably more gear it towards my sort of general understanding of like the geopolitical implications of this, and my very basic tangential understanding of Korean politics. I'm not an expert by any means in South Korean politics. I just know like the very basics. So this is going to be very much a sort of like we see things as they happen in real time kind of stream, as opposed to a like retrospective kind of stream. So for people who are not aware, within the last hour and a half, 2 hours, very bizarre news emerged from Seoul, saying that the president had declared martial law. Like I say, complete Black Swan event. Even the Korean sources that I was looking at, whenever I put the moon runes through translations, they were bewildered, baffled, completely confused by this situation. So the initial reports came out that there was a declaration of martial law. Then slowly, well, not slowly, everything's been going very quickly at the moment in Korea. So here let me see if this will work. Is that going to show up on our screen? So a lot of this stuff I'm going to be referencing what's up on X and on Telegram. So let me just see if this comes back onto. Is that just a black screen or no? There. Okay. So just going up. So what's the time now? It's about 3:30 here. So here you go. About an hour and a half ago, I was pretty much keeping well into. Okay, here we go. So about an hour and a half ago, so I first posted it at about 20 to 2, so an hour and 40 minutes ago. Just completely out of the blue, there was reports that martial law had been declared in South Korea. Slowly as time, well, not slowly, again, this is very rapidly moving. It appears that the president, the incumbent President Yoon, who is politically conservative in the Korean political spectrum, essentially from my understanding of what I can see, has accused the liberal political opposition of, in effect, trying to overthrow his government via impeachments and constantly frustrating his political agenda in the parliament. There was a parliamentary election in Korea early this year, in April, I believe it was, where the liberal opposition won an overall majority, and they've effectively blocked and frustrated the president and his mandate ever since. And he's effectively kind of saying this is like a anti-government pro-North Korean movement within South Korea, and martial law is coming in to reestablish law and order and to excise this quote-unquote pro-Northern faction within South Korean society. So it very much looks like it's a political purge, a self coup situation. So like they are not screwing around with this stuff. It is like a proper hardline, full on effort they're putting in. Pretty much from the reports I've seen, pretty much every political activity has been banned for the duration of martial law. No protests, no demonstrations allowed. The parliament is actually closed off by police at the moment, and in the last few minutes we've gotten footage of Korean special forces here being inserted by Korean UH-60s into the parliamentary ground. So not too sure if that audio is playing for you from the video itself. It's just helicopters in the background, but for some reason, desktop audio. Let's just play about my desktop audio. Let's try that. Okay, there you go. I should have it now. So these are Korean special forces. Korean operators tend to be highly regarded, so they're not really screwing about with this. They've occupied the parliament. Military is on the street in Seoul. There's various footage of convoys of Korean, looks like these are IFEs, APCs, in convoys streaming into the city. So that alone says that the military is behind this. The military is lined in behind the president's move here. So pretty much. So this is footage from in front of the parliament. These are police in the high-vis vests. It's assumed that these are probably presidential security detail, and then these are protesters alleged to be starting to form up in front of the parliamentary building here. So that's the Korean National Assembly there. I believe that's the Supreme Court. So that's on lockdown at the moment. It is late in Korea at the moment. I believe this announcement went out around about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night in Korea. So the city was always kind of winding down towards the evening. So we'll just see what some of the latest is. So as it says there, MPs and journalists blocked from entry to the parliament building by South Korean tactical teams. So if the army and the police are pretty much falling into line behind the president, you know, he's got the hard power in this situation. So I was looking at some of the Earth live cams, you know, these sort of like constant live streams that you find in every city of Seoul. And you can see military convoys moving around the streets in Seoul. And so... So in effect, Parliament's been suspended. All political power in Korea at the moment, from my understanding of it, is executive fiat by the presidency, the president's office. So I like that, right? So look, right, I just found this funny. So here you've got an operator with his night vision goggles, and then this guy just like pulls the back of his helmet down. Like, Larry. Okay, I guess that's one way to do it. But so opposition MPs are obviously trying to get into the parliament, saying this is illegal, this is like this, that, and everything. But we're scaling the walls of parliament to vote down the martial law. So all media in South Korea, from my understanding, has been brought under government control. There's now a censorship regime in the south.
상황이고요.
So it looks like the opposition MPs are trying to hold an emergency session of Parliament in an attempt to try and vote down this live streams himself scaling the wall. So this is pretty correct. Like Korea, South Korea especially, even more than North Korea, because actually North Korea has never really held any kind of military coup d'état. South Korea has a long history of this up until the 1990s. So like before climbing. So it is pretty like completely black swan event. I had no rumblings this was happening. There was no, and you know I'm pretty autistic. I'm constantly scanning like Telegram and X and stuff for various sources because I'm obsessed with geopolitics, and there was just no inkling this was coming at all. Completely out of the blue. But to be fair, like the president does seem to be like quite an erratic figure. Again, I'm not someone who very closely follows South Korean politics, but I can distinctly remember there was like a mini scandal of sorts whenever the president came to the coronation of King Charles in London. I believe I can't remember the specifics of it, but he was either too drunk or he did something that caused a scandal back in Korea while he was here for the coronation in the UK. So he does seem to be a fairly erratic character. I believe some people have likened him to Donald Trump, but in South Korea. Like I say, he is of the political conservative on the right in South Korean politics. And genuinely, it appears that there was no consultation with like the American military garrison in Korea. No consultation with the U.S. embassy, let alone with Washington. It appears that even amongst the government itself is that this was very closely, maybe even like very recently agreed upon kind of thing, because there appears to have been no consultation with like much of the apparatus of government up until the news broke. Like looking at the stuff online from Korean sources, putting it through translation software, they were all completely baffled by this, just utterly bewildered, completely not expected at all. Came as a bolt out of the blue. So there's soldiers in the parliament, the army on the streets in Seoul. So let's have a look. What's the Korean won currently doing? Because last I checked, it was taking a bit of a nosedive. So like I said, I'm gonna be playing a bit of Stalker in the background just to kind of occupy my mind as we just wait for news to come in. Because this is very much developing. I believe it's coming up to midnight in Korea at the moment. So I just want a good, easy to okay, here you go. Oh, 48 hours. Yeah, so this is Korean won to the British pound. As you can see, pretty much as soon as the news broke, 1 p.m., 1 in the afternoon here in the UK, the pound against the won has just gone parabolic. Granted, you know, like the won is not a very highly rated currency in international markets, relatively, but pretty indicative there of just how the markets are reacting. So this is the value. So this is like how many won that you would get for the pound. I change this into dollar. Why are currency websites so awkward? I just want to just show me various. So yeah, let's just have a look, see if there's any latest news. So I think pretty much everything comes down to how much the opposition, and there might be protest movements against this, because it looks pretty much that the actual hard apparatus of state, of the South Korean state, the South Korean police and the South Korean military have lined up so far pretty square behind the president in this action. The opposition leader, Lee Myung, again, I'm not, forgive my pronunciation, I don't read Hangul and I don't speak Korean, but Yoon Suk-yeol is no longer the president of South Korea, so the opposition is pretty much saying that they've impeached, or the president has effectively resigned his executive office in Seoul. So that's kind of where we are at the moment. Just have a look, see if we have anything. This, like I say, this is very rapidly developing situation. So as it just looks like there's a bit of a standoff in Parliament. Soldiers and police block the doors, and are preventing opposition MPs and figures from entering Parliament and blocking journalists. So that is where we are at the moment. So I'm going to be keep lots of helos in the skies. So here we go. These are your UH-60s, your South Korean version of them. They would have brought in the Special Forces operators. So there must have been some degree of South Korea. It appears that the police may refuse to support the president's decision to impose martial law. So might be a bit of discord there of the national police, but very much so it appears that the military at the very least, and some elements of the police in Seoul have lined up behind the president's actions. So I'm going to be keeping a close eye on this as reports come in. So I guess I'm going to just do a little bit of this just so there's something on screen, because I'm aware whenever I do my map streams, it does tend to get a bit boring whenever it's just a single map. So just something to stimulate your neurons as I pontificate here. So got some rebels coming. The situation I think that we are in is, it appears that this is kind of like a political action. The president's obviously lining this up, saying that there's national security implications because the opposition is aligned with Pyongyang. I actually think probably Pyongyang is baffled by this. Pyongyang obviously being the capital of North Korea. Don't really expect much input from the North Koreans at the moment. I'm sure that there'll probably be a heightening of military tensions along the border, but it is a bit of a sea change, because often Western analysts and in Western rhetoric, North Korea is seen as like the destabilizing partner in this, the destabilizing the erratic Korea, which, you know, to a degree it is, but I mean, North Korea has never actually, since the establishment of the North Korean state, undergone a military coup, or pretty much any kind of coup. There was obviously like a legislative coup whenever Kim Il-sung established the North Korean Communist Party as a party state. But in terms of something like this, South Korea arguably has historically been the more unstable power, because from the establishment of South Korea as an independent entity, especially from the start of the Korean War, most of South Korean history as an independent state has actually been under military dictatorship. Obviously, you had Syngman-rhee, who was the first military dictator who overseen the Korean War until the 50s, and I think there was a very I can't remember the specific history, but there've been various military dictatorship periods, very short intervals of quote unquote democratic rule, then a return to military dictatorships. So I believe there was a short spell of quote unquote democracy, democratic rule, constitutional democratic rule in the South in the late or the mid 60s. Then there was another military dictatorship that rode out the 60s into the 70s. And then you had the sort of modern South Korean economic prosperity, and the modern South Korean state really came into being in the 1980s under that military dictatorship. And then that dictatorship kind of freely handed over power to a transition to democracy in the 1990s. So since the 1990s is kind of mirroring Taiwan to a large degree. Is you had, because of the changes in the era, the collapse of communism, the immediate, the sort of pulling back of the external threat from China, from in the Taiwanese case, in North Korea, the Soviet-backed North Korea in the South's cases, you had this sort of slow transition into democratic institutions and democracy. So pretty much since the 1990s, is South Korea has always been held up and arguably has been that sort of model liberal democracy in East Asia. Certainly throughout my life, I've always considered like South Korea to be a Western style liberal democracy. So I think this is going to rattle quite a few people, that this has kind of come out of the blue and seems to be a step back. The president, but then again, which dictator, which coupist has never done this, but the president does seem to have put a time limit on it and said, like, we are here to restore the institutions of the state, to purge hostile internal and foreign elements from the state, and then there'll be a resumption of like a return to normalized democratic rule. So but as I say, cynically thinking like what would be dictator, or someone who has taken someone who has taken unconstitutional power has never justified their actions by saying that. So sorry, just paying a bit more attention to this than I probably should be. The geopolitics of this is quite dynamic at the moment. I'm sure people who are part of my community and have been following the Telegram for quite a while will understand that there is a bit of a Korea is north and south, has been sort of a tangential player to the events in Ukraine, and in recent months especially have become an even more pertinent part to the story of what is happening between Russia and Ukraine. Of course, we have these stories that there are North Korean expeditionary forces operating in the Kursk Oblast area on behalf of the Russians. The Americans and other Western powers have been pressing the South Koreans to open up their weapon inventories to send to Ukraine because of the nature of the situation. Jesus Christ! Because of the situation of the nature. The nature of the situation on the Korean peninsula itself is there is a vast stock of particularly artillery shells. South Korea generally using American and Western style artillery. Has large stocks of shells for those systems. These are in pretty high demand in Ukraine, so there's been a long push by Washington and other powers to try and get the South Koreans to open up these vast stocks to send them to Ukraine. Various domestic politics and legislation in Seoul has actually prevented that by and large. There was some discussion that might change because all these allegations that the North Koreans are providing weapons to the Russians, North Korean troops fighting in Russia, might have lessened the stalwart opposition of that towards Seoul, in Seoul towards such policy towards Ukraine. So I'm not too sure specifically on where the president stands. Like I say, I don't follow South Korean politics very much. I'm just kind of going off my very general understanding of it and the history of it. So I'm not too sure where the president stands on this and how he might approach the Ukrainian issue. Maybe. But then you also have the issue that the Biden administration is in its last days, and this appears to have been done without any consultation with Washington. And considering how unstable things are internationally in the Middle East, events in Europe, in terms for Biden, and just in general his presidential legacy, I can't imagine the opinion in Washington is very pleased with this situation at the moment, because you have to understand, like, if this is, Joe Biden comes into office, Afghanistan collapses, first major war in Europe since 1945, the Middle East effectively devolves into complete anarchy, and now a long-time American ally and fairly well-established democratic state is apparently undergoing, or in effect, a self-coup d'etat into a presidential dictatorship. Probably not the best things for Joe Biden to be riding out his final days in office on. So I wouldn't expect that the Americans are going to do much to destabilize the situation in Seoul at the moment. But I can't imagine they're very well pleased. And then it'll come into the question of like, where does Trump stand on this whenever he takes office? I don't think Trump really is going to care too much about like, oh, the feelings of shit liberals in South Korea, as opposed to like someone from my understanding, he had a fairly good relationship with. So he said both of them seem to be of like this sort of like anti-establishment, right, populist, nationalist kind of vein. Johnny Somali executed, body hung outside the South Korean parliament. So yeah, we'll do. I'm gonna give that a like and a retweet. So just having a quick scan through. So gathering of protesters outside the parliament. Soldiers are apparently leaving the parliament building now. That could potentially be quite significant. Let's have a look. It looks like we've got some development. So if the soldiers are just leaving, that could mean that some of their commanding officers have. South Korean police had to break through the international. They couldn't push through the entry and exit doors assembly, which had been blocked by. Okay, so we're getting some conflicting reports here. So apparently, South Korean police are arresting opposition MPs. Then there are also reports that apparently. So here, I'll show you what I'm looking at the moment. So I'll pause this so I don't get killed by a bloodsucker. So So this is footage purported to be of these Korean operators leaving the parliament. What that would imply is that they've been ordered out, and that could mean that they've been ordered out because maybe there's some dissension in the military. Maybe the military has changed its mind, or some of their commanders are interceding to side with Parliament as opposed to the presidency. But then again, there are other reports that police are still in the parliament, actually starting to arrest some people as well. So very dynamic situation going on. Just see what else we've got. Any other reports coming in? Special forces broke through the windows while entering the South Korean parliament since doors were blocked by opposition. Increasing reports that opposition lawmakers are being arrested. So let's have a quick look elsewhere. But yeah, very, very dynamic situation. Depending on how long this goes, so there's just a lot of memes going around Johnny Somali at the moment, which are quite funny. South Korean government is threatening to arrest citizens who violate martial law without a warrant. So, like I said, this is a pretty. Christ, woman trying to steal a canal. Let me throw that up in Telegram. So, pretty chaotic situation at the moment. Let me just have a look. Is this the Korean president that is mind controlled by the feminist fortune teller? No, this is above me. Is this crazy woman is trying to steal a rifle off a soldier? He's pointing it at her, so that could have gone south very quickly, very badly. So, in no short order, they really aren't fucking about on this. Like I say, the martial law legislation is pretty all encompassing. You're arrested on the streets. Special court regimes. Complete shutdown of opposition media. Outlawing of all. So it appears that some members of the president's own ruling party are criticizing this. So, like I say, this very much came out of the blue. Very little to no consultation with pretty much anyone outside the president's office, and maybe some of the very senior leadership of the military and the police. All protest political rallies banned. All press, publication, news outlets placed under government control. All medical personnel and others to stop strike. So there must have been strikes going on, and to return to work. Parliament, all parties, regional councils are banned from operating. So in effect, the complete shutdown of the pretty much all political institutions apart from the presidency. Any offenders will be arrested and subject to detention without warrant. Effectively, detention without trial. So it very much seems like a reversion back to the 1980s here. It seems like a very, because obstinately from me, an outsider, and from what I've read very quickly on the fly, is this all seems to be like effectively like a political crisis, in the sense that the president couldn't pass legislation through the parliament, so he's just decided to kind of abolish parliament. But again, this other stuff, like, do you know what I mean? It's like during the height of the Brexit crisis, we didn't exactly have, yeah, we had the proroguing of parliament. We didn't have the army on the streets to forcibly dissolve parliament, kind of thing. So it does seem like the president is effectively going YOLO on this. I'm still scanning, just having a look, see if we've got any updates. So police and military continue to enter parliament to block MPs who are attempting to vote. Okay, so clashes in front of the parliament, special forces. So yeah, so I'll go on for a little bit of a meander until we get some more news. So like I say, depending how sustainable this thing is, like say if this new, like, I don't think this is the kind of thing that the president's going to hand power back in 10 days or like in a month kind of thing. The measures that they're taking are pretty OTT. Like, this is, you know, what the fuck? Did I see that? Yeah. These are the measures of like a new order, a new political order, as opposed to like we're here to preserve the old system and rewrite it. So the question is like if it survives that long, if it becomes actually sustainable, immediate protests are quelled. How would Donald Trump potentially? Because this is the big thing. Is like the nothing's really going to be sustainable if Washington really doesn't get behind it. I think Biden will I think Biden's kind of hamstrung. Like less than just over 30 days or so until he leaves office. A little bit longer than 40 days. So I don't really think he has many options on this. So if this thing's to become like actually sustainable, it'll all depend on what the new Trump government is going to approach this from. So it'll be interesting to see like would this new like I can see avenues where that would work. Like obviously Trump's big thing is tariffs and trade. The new presidential regime in Korea might offer Trump some more advantageous trade deals, which might shore up his position in Washington. The other aspect, going kind of tangentially on that, is this could have the potential to really screw up global economics. I think people don't quite understand just like how much of a big player South Korea is in international markets. Like in terms of high tech industries, shipbuilding, other kinds of heavy industries. South Koreans are actually quite a big player in this. Of course, you have the famous car markets and the chaebols and stuff. So depending like how this situation is done, we're seeing a very big tank in the won at the moment. This could have some serious ramifications in international markets if it's not dealt with subtly and tactfully. So let's have a quick look, see what else we've got going on. Within the next 10 days, so this is the president, within the next 10 days, I will eradicate anti-state forces. So like the president's alleging that the left, I say left wing, I again not an expert in South Korean politics, so I can't tell you like actually how left they are, but they are generally liberal in the political scale in South Korea. He's alleging that the liberal opposition in parliament, who hold a majority and have been blocking all his legislation and trying to impeach many of his ministers, and I believe potentially himself, are effectively like proxies for North Korea. So let's just have a couple more ganders. Not been a very good decade for liberal democracy, shall we say? Have been taking quite a lot of L's. So, more footage of military helos airborne over Seoul. Connor Osterbland for $10 US. Suhon Lee and her liberal followers have stormed the state capitol building of Incheon, declaring the Democratic International Commonwealth of Korea, Korea going full Hearts of Iron mode. Is that actually true, or is this a reference? I am not getting. Incheon being the city down the river from Seoul. Let's have a look. No police visible on parts of Incheon.
Na-declare po si President Yoon ng emergency martial law. Wala pa naman po tayo nakikita police. At ganitong oras, talagang wala naman pong tao. Nagsasara na rin po ang mga...
She has to be Filipino. There's no way that's Korean. U.S. military aircraft currently airborne along the DMZ, so I guess that's kind of understandable. Domestic turmoil in South Korea would raise fears of the potentiality for the North Koreans to maybe attempt something So the Americans seem to be taking over the slack on the border at the moment. No reports. I think that super chat must have been a reference to something that went over my head, because I'm not seeing any reports of anything really going down in Incheon at the moment. So at the moment, all this seems to very much be a Seoul-based situation. Obviously, that's where all the institutions of government are. So everything seems to be going down in Seoul at the moment. Have a look here. More military troops are pouring into Seoul. Roadblocks going up on the main intersections. So yeah, it sucks to be Johnny Somali at the moment. Hopefully martial law means that they have brought back executions. What a shame that would be. So just as we wait for a bit more news in, I guess we'll pontificate a little bit more. So yeah, obviously in recent years there's been a steady heightening of tensions between the South and the North. North Korea obviously is like officially given up any pretenses of peaceful unification with the South. They abolished their unification ministry. Constantly very bellicose rhetoric from North Korea. The current incumbent president, the guy who's effectively launched this coup, very strongly anti-communist, very strongly anti-North. So the rhetoric from Pyongyang generally has been considered like against him personally. But like, do I think? I don't know. I would imagine without, like I say, I'm just flying off the cuff here from what I see. Not an expert in South Korean politics and stuff, but I think probably Pyongyang is as baffled by this as pretty much the rest of us are. It's a lot of sausage. Let's have a look. So, reports that Parliament has quote-unquote unanimously voted to overthrow martial law. Quite how that works whenever most of the MPs can't even get into the building. Just keeping a bit of a scrolling through, seeing if we get any more reports. Republic of Korea Parliament votes to block presidential's martial law. Just complete fucking slop accounts posting dog shit right. So I'm calling out this guy because do not follow this fucking account, Inevitable West. This account does nothing but post. It takes small bits of out of context stuff and post just complete bullshit takes that you want to hear but are not true. Like, South Korea has declared martial law as socialist opposition leader attempts to lead a coup. Like, what? Like, what the fuck are you? Just do not follow this slop account. This is here to get your engagement, and I fucking hate it. I hate it how it's always being promoted to me. Despite, right, you that dog shit. It's just sucked for some of these operators to go away. You think you're just about to clock off your shift for the night, and then you're told, "Sorry, bro, we're launching a coup, get into full combat gear." So, um, yeah, so that's the kind of international dynamics of this. Potentiality that maybe the president will become more amenable, or perhaps less amenable to sending weaponry to Ukraine in the situation that's happening in it there. Maybe there'll be a more bellicose stance towards North Korea, which could heighten tensions on the peninsula. Maybe again, just if this new situation lasts long enough, just what's will be the dynamic with the Trump administration whenever it comes in, the impacts on international markets, and the like. Also, like from the little bits I know about domestic Korean politics, like it's a pretty crazy country at times. Like you have an extremely aggressive and verbose feminist tendency, the B3 or B4 movement. Like you're sort of ultra radical Korean feminists who like refuse to have any participation in society with men at all under any circumstances. And then you also have like if you I mean I hate using the term in any context, but it's like you have pretty hardcore incels in South Korea who are like make Elliot Rodgers look you know make Elliot Rodgers look moderate. So you have that weird dynamic. You have the demographic collapse where just no one's having children anymore, which is increasingly pressing. You have the constant pressure of what's going on in North Korea. Pretty wild country at times. Government to nationalize the StarCraft servers. So apparently, despite the fact that it looks half empty in the chamber of the footage I'm seeing, South Korean Parliament votes 190 votes to 0 to lift President Yoon's martial law declaration. So I guess the question is at the moment is, in these kind of situations, everything comes down to the hard power, pure hard power. Do the generals and do the police commanders, do they decide that power lays with the presidency and that's who they're going to stand with, or does power lay with the parliament and therefore they're going to refuse the orders of the president and go with the parliament now? So Connor again for $10 US. Thank you so much, very generous. What are the odds of a South Korean civil war? Is what a Falfulus going to be vindicated about the incel? Don't really know too much about the second part. I don't think there's really any chance of a civil war. None of the previous coups historically have ended up in civil wars. Yeah, there'll be tensions and stuff, but it'll give one way or the other because there just really isn't that division as such in South Korea. Like you don't have different competing ethnic groups. You don't have different, entrenched, like the Buddhists aren't going to go out and start killing the Catholics, and the Catholics aren't going to start killing the atheist kind of thing. I don't really think you have like the situation for a civil war, but I think you definitely have the situation for like a turbulent period of domestic politics. So either the president wins out and we enter some kind of new presidential dictatorship, which has historically been the norm in South Korea, or the parliament wins out, and then you'll probably have like a a nominal return to democracy as we've known it, but there'll probably be changes within the like constitutional changes, and then I mean, if the president's just kind of pulled this out of the hat, I wouldn't be surprised if if the president loses this fight, that South Korea would probably go towards a more parliamentary system, and they'll define the presidency so that they can't really have this kind of thing again. Because, like I say, this is completely out of the blue, and pretty much all by presidential fiat. So, like if you're looking for like a Slavic analogy to this, I would say that this is like the 1993 Russian constitutional crisis is what I would say. This is probably what we are. We. Yeah, the 1993 parliamentary. The 1993 constitutional crisis in Russia, where essentially Boris Yeltsin and the Russian Supreme Soviet kind of went at it over who actually exercises ultimate political authority. I think this is kind of where we are now, and as in Russia, is the same kind of in South Korea at the moment. It's moot about legal theories and all this kind of stuff. It will ultimately come down to who the military, the people with the guns and the hard power, decide to stand behind on this. So I guess we're just digesting at the moment what this parliamentary vote means and what it will result in, where the military sort of comes down on it. So as we're waiting for a bit of that, I guess we'll just quickly transition a bit to Syria follow-up. Mixed bag in Syria. I'm just going to kind of really whirl through this because I might do a later stream on this later in the week. But heavy fighting north of Hama. The main terrorist forces have hit the Syrian army in that area. Very heavy fighting. They're slowly gaining ground. Not the best situation north of Hama at the moment. So hit or miss there. In eastern Aleppo, the army has pushed back terrorist forces from the Euphrates, but it's still very much touch and go. Russian and Syrian air power are constantly ongoing. Iraqi troops are flowing, Iraqi militias are flowing into the country, but some of them are getting bombed by the Americans because, of course. So that's a very fast and hot take on Syria. It does look like the army is potentially losing a bit of ground around Hama. Very heavy battles currently ongoing in the area. So just forwarding a few things into the Telegram group. Apparently all the MPs from the president's party boycotted the vote or were not present for it. So any and all soldiers who still comply with martial law can and will be punished for sedition. So yeah, it's kind of on the line now. Either the soldiers sink or swim. If they keep here, I'm gonna go to Zalicia and trade all my shit. So they're in it for a penny in the pound. Like, there's no way the president survives this if he backs down. He will almost certainly be absolutely impeached, removed from power, and I would be very surprised if he isn't subjected to pretty far-ranging prosecutions. And my FPS just died. So, Mm. So just trying to. Oh yeah, just more footage of fighting in front of the parliament. And when I say fighting, it's just like people pushing back and forth against soldiers. Um, there's something banging outside my house, and I have no idea what it is. So, what else have we got? So we're just kind of at this awkward stage where we're just waiting to see like where the military stands. That's pretty much where everything comes down to it now. Is everything is down to the army officers and the police commanders. Um, Here, I'll throw that up in the Telegram. So I'll show some of this on stream, but as always, if you're looking for this actual footage and stuff, I'm throwing them up into the Telegram when and as I get them. So the main opposition leader has stated the army and security forces enforcing the martial law decision will be tried for treason. Know that there will be consequences for your actions. Only courts and prisons await you. So, again, like I say, everything is just down to see what the army commanders do, because that's kind of like a direct threat. If a commander feels like, well, if I'm going to be sent to prison, so it kind of says it's a two-edged sword. You know, commanders could look at that statement and say, well, okay, I'm not going to involve myself in this to avoid potential prosecution, or they could look at that and say, well, I've kind of ordered my men to go into the parliament, so I know I am going to be prosecuted, so therefore, for my own sake, I'm going to stick with the president and take his side on this. So, we were getting some pretty ballsy ultimatums and declarations starting to fly back and forth. In many ways, I'm probably a bit surprised that the leader of the opposition hasn't been arrested. Generally, in a coup d'état, that's sort of the main thing you want to do. You want to defang any potential political opposition. That was kind of the big thing that Turkish military failed to do during their coup in 2016. So, bunker housing for 50 Swedish krona. Seems South Korea was the military dictatorship we never knew we had. Yeah, well, we might like to kid ourselves about it, but ultimately it's the people with the guns who all hold the final the final reigns of power whenever stuff like this happens. So, let's have a look. What else have we got going? Democracy in the Republic of Korea is in critical state. I hope that the National Assembly will take the just your usual. It's from the official report submerge of. I have to say, Grisha's Twitter is quite funny. Right, Jez, how are you keeping? How long until Starmer offers asylum to all the K-pop members? Like, if he want, that's they're the good refugees. If we're going to start offering political asylum to some K-pop idols, I'm okay with that. I say bring them all in. Free movement, open borders for K-pop idols. So, just going back again, bit of a depressing situation in Syria. The army appears to not be faring the best around Hama. Still looks like there's quite a lot of confusion in the command structure for the Syrian military, and their drone operations keep undermining them. So looks like some decent progress by the army in western Hama, but towards Hama city itself, still very much hit or miss. So still keeping tabs on the Syria situation. I'm not one of these people who's just transitioned away off Syria. I mean, I'm still keeping eyes on it. It's just the situation in Korea is just out of the blue. Okay. Oh dear. Let's have a look. Lee Sung-yuan deposed. So this is. I mean, whenever you put it like that, it does look very unstable, doesn't it? But so yeah. Now that martial law has been nullified, you need to leave the Speaker of the Parliament to the soldiers. So yeah, we are at this awkward stage where it's just like everything is yeah, everything is basically hinges on which side the soldiers and their officers decide to come down on. So we're just kind of waiting to see some indication of where that might be breaking. So it does appear for the moment, up-to-date info is that the police and the military, at least at the Parliament building, let me see if I can find some live streams from Parliament building itself. There's a bit of conjecture about if the soldiers are leaving or if they are remaining in place. So South Korea live stream. see what comes up there. That's from the cordon outside the Parliament. We need to see. We need some footage actually from the actual doors to the building itself, because that's where they are, and that's where you'll. So there's still a police cordon at the front. So there's the police cordon in front of the Parliamentary estate is still there, which potentially. So yeah, the police cordon in front of the Parliamentary estate is still in place, and it's still blocking people. That's potentially a bit of indication there. But the real story is about the special forces soldiers actually in Parliament itself, actually in front of the doors of the building itself, and holding them back, the MPs. If they stay in place, I think that's kind of the biggest indication of where we're going with this. Rather than the metro cops just holding back the mob in front of the estate itself. So I like that. There you go. So that chat is how you bamboozle a highly trained $100,000 equipped soldier. Yeah. So if you're ever planning a coup, that's the way you go about it. You pull at the back of the helmet. Speaker is claiming that the soldiers have left the Parliament building. But until I actually see video footage of that, I'm not taking that as gospel. Just scanning to see what we've got here. So like I say, a lot of this footage I am throwing up into the Telegram group. So if you're not in there, that's where the magic usually happens. So there you go. Throw the link up into chat just to give you a go. So again, for people who have joined us since, absolutely not an expert in South Korean domestic politics. Kind of touched on the potential geopolitical ramifications of this kind of stuff, vis-a-vis how a future Trump administration might deal with this presidential dictatorship if it becomes established. Just a little bit of insight into like how South Korea intersects to a degree with Ukraine policy. Okay, so it does look like the military has left the Parliament. So if that has happened, I think that's pretty much it's over. I think the special forces soldiers have left the parliamentary building. I think that's kind of probably the beginning of the end of this stuff. Isn't there a GB News contributor who had plastic surgery look Korean? I don't know if he's a contributor to GB News, but I know you're talking about it's that fucking idiot. Is it Ollie London or something? Because he's a dickhead. He still whenever I used to go out and film protests, he would steal my footage and like I would upload footage from like the Black Lives Matter protests and riots, or from the transgender protest at the Women's March in Belfast. He literally downloaded my footage and then uploaded it to his own account and passed it off as his own. He's a fucking dickhead. I don't understand how he's become this like based right wing. He's a freak. But I know who you're talking about. So so the question is if the military have pulled out, if the commanders have decided to side with Parliament against the president, what happens to the president now? Are they going to start arresting? Are they going to arrest him? Like, what powers does he have? Has he been stripped of his power? It doesn't appear there's been any vote in Parliament to do that. Is there going to be new elections? How does this happen? So it does appear that some high-ranking officers in the South Korean military have refused the presidential decree. Hmm. Having some bad FPS drop off. I can really fucking see what I'm doing here. Come on, GSE games. I can fix the FPS issue in your game. Just while I meander for the internet to have a look. Biden is in Africa. Just a gay take from Biden on something completely unrelated. Bunker housing for 50 Swedish krona. How much is Biden's senility factor in these happenings? I think his weakness certainly has a big player in this. Just the general state of the world at the moment. Introduce martial law to suspend Parliament. Parliament votes to overturn martial law. I guess that kind of defeats the purpose, doesn't it? So, for all we know, everyone in Pyongyang's probably just going to wake up tomorrow and find this all happened and just be bewildered that it even occurred. Uh, it does still appear to be that there are military personnel on the grounds of Parliament. Parliament building itself. Hmm. Okay. Oh. I'm just scrolling through various channels at the moment, just seeing if I can get any updates. The military martial command will remain in place, according to the defense official from the Ministry of Defense. So, just kind of waiting for a bit more news to filter out from Seoul at the moment. I mean, it very much is a Seoul issue. I have not seen any reports of any disorder or events elsewhere across the country. At least stuff that's been corroborated. There's nothing from Busan, from Incheon, from Daejeon. Very much all appears to be concentrated in Seoul at the moment. But it is interesting to note, like, in the past 4 years, how many quote unquote democracies have been subjected to like anti-constitutional overthrow attempts. So like obviously the one that all the shit libs would go for is they'd say like Jan 6th started this trend. Then you had the protests for Bolsonaro whenever Lula was inaugurated in Brazil. Now you've got the South Korean president fucking doing this. What is this? Hold on, I'm being sailed chat on Telegram. So the reason the Parliament didn't immediately vote to impeach the president was because they didn't have 200 members there at the time, which are required to impeach the executive. So um so yeah, just waiting for a bit more news to start to filter out, so we kind of understand where the trend is going in Seoul at the moment. So we'll just take a quick detour to Syria and give you guys a bit of an idea of what's happened there. So why aren't you showing up the amazing? Pardon me, just as I want to come and have a look in serious stuff, this happens. So that was it for the Syria update. There is none because the website broke. But seriously though, from my understanding is situation's not going too well for the army at the moment. Heavy fighting around Hama. terrorist forces are flanking to the east and the west of the city. The very heavy fighting ongoing between both sides. The army continues to consolidate positions in eastern Aleppo, and national defense forces are continuing to mobilize in Latakia to form cohesive lines and defend their territory from terrorist groups that might spill over into their area. Various rebel groups are said to be within about 40 kilometers of the main Russian airbase and military installations at Khamenei airbase. But there's no indication, and I wouldn't expect the Russians would ever decamp from that, because that is a strategic asset that they've long invested in, and I doubt they would ever conceive of abandoning anytime soon. So, so very, very touch and go situation in Syria at the moment. They need to stabilize the line. The army does, so that these reinforcements from Iraq and Iran can start to pour in. That's if the Americans don't keep bombing them to support ISIS light. Okay, so here we go. Website's working, so yeah, here you go. What's this down here? So as you can see, a very strong rebel push trying to flank the city. So a little bit depressing, but not entirely as grim as it was a few days ago. So bit stabilization in certain areas, but the main bulk of the rebel force from the fighting against the SDF have started to calm down. So it's the situation in Syria at the moment. Let's have a look. But any other details? That's old footage. That's old footage. That's not recent. So basically, my kind of bell whatever for this is whenever we start to see the armored vehicles starting to leave Seoul, and there's like a warrant put out for the president's arrest, is kind of would be my benchmark to say that this thing is failed. So sorry for the dead air. I'm just reading some stuff. Trying to get a bit more of an idea of where exactly. Because the president did not lift martial law, the current security administration situation is said to be under the military's control. So I'm kind of flipping back and forth between South Korea and Syria at the moment. So, report from a situation is good in the eastern vicinity of the city of Hama. Army units have reinforced their points and are ready for a possible attack. There's no need to worry and believe the rumors spread by media machines. Any progress towards the Burj and Karnaz axis. So.
Blending with the green leaves and yellowish leaves of the lilies in the enchanted lake.
I don't know why I watched that. I got some new footage. I'm gonna throw up in the Telegram channel. We got here. South Korean vows to root out North Korean forces, accuses the opposition of taking parliamentary processes hostage. So these are MPs and parliamentary staff blocking the doors to prevent the soldiers from entering. So apparently it's like, I don't know, from what I'm reading is apparently this is like, there's a technicality, like the parliament cannot absolve the martial law by itself, as it requires the president to give his okay to it, which obviously he's not going to do. So as I say, as I've referenced earlier in the stream, I think that probably the closest analogy that we have to this is the 1993 Russian constitutional crisis, but in Korea. Ultimately, like it's a question of who holds ultimate political power. Is it in an executive sense? Is it by the parliament, or is it the president? And obviously, in the Russian sense, the Supreme Soviet lost that battle to Boris Yeltsin, and he only lost that because the army sided with the president as opposed to the parliament. So that's to say, ultimately, everything comes down to where the men with the guns put their side on. So yeah, okay, FPS is fixed. So as we just wait for a little bit more news to come out from South Korea, I'll just meander about this. Does anyone have anything they want to throw at me? Any chat, any questions or stuff you want to throw at me, chat, while we wait for a bit more news on developments? Bunker housing for 20 Swedish krona, thank you so much. Will this mean more or less artillery shells for Ukraine? I honestly don't know. I kind of referenced it earlier in the stream. Obviously, one of the big geopolitical aspects of this is South Korea is constantly being under pressure by particularly the United States to open up its vast stocks of artillery shells to Ukraine, particularly Western artillery shells. And it's always rebuffed them for legislative, political reasons. I'm not too sure where President Yoon or where the parliament stands on Russia and Ukraine. So I honestly don't know at the moment. Someone who's probably a bit more versed in South Korean politics would probably have a better idea than me. But as it stands, considering how reluctant South Korea has been so far, and generally that's been under the aegis of the President Yoon, the incumbent, the guy who's called martial law. Potentially we could see a change to a situation where South Korea might become more amenable towards a pro-Ukrainian position if the president loses out on this. But then again, domestic chaos in South Korea is kind of like a very big red flag to Pyongyang. So who knows what might happen. There might be an agreement between Russia and Moscow for North Korea to become a bit more antagonistic and make the South Koreans think twice about potentially giving away artillery shells that they feel they might need against a more boisterous North Korea in the near future. So there's quite a few different angles that this could be approached. DPRK or ROK, which is best? Well, obviously North Korea is best Korea. Let's be inside. Oh, nope. There you go. Oh, pardon me. So, just streaming through. Have they going Gangnam style? Zelensky. You know that Russia might also speculate how this affects their shells from North Korea. Well, I mean the North Korean shells are already and have been for quite a while going to Russia, so I don't really think there's going to be much in terms of there. In terms of like the North Korean shells, I think what they've done is the Russians have said, like, we'll buy your backlog of you know, decades old Soviet caliber artillery shells, and we'll help you replace them with more modern and dependable shells, or potentially like building a new factory to produce them. I think that's probably what was agreed between Moscow and Pyongyang and their deal on that. Hello. Just wonder what the K-pop idols make of all this. What has kicked this all off? I mean, it appears that essentially the Liberal opposition in Parliament have been threatening to impeach various members of the president's cabinet, and have blocked every single bit of legislation that he's tried to push through since the election in April, the parliamentary election, and he's accused them essentially of like frustrating the entire functioning of government. That's from my understanding. Could this happen in Canada? No, I'm afraid not. Anglos don't do coups, I'm afraid. I'm afraid Anglos, we're here to suffer. Here. So apparently Biden's doing a state visit to Angola and is just making a complete fucking fool of himself. So really not much of a take to be taken from that. Mm. So if we don't get any major updates soon, I'm probably gonna close this down. Because I'm just kind of meandering and repeating myself here. So just have a look at the telegrams. We got anything in Telegram? Any updates in those sources? It is said that if Yoon Suk Yeol doesn't lift the martial law and orders the martial military command to disband itself, military and police commanders will be legally responsible to arrest him. South Korean President Yoon Suk Yeol could be arrested as early as this evening on charges of attempting a coup. Parliament has initiated impeachment proceedings against him. Presidents Vladimir Putin and Erdogan discussed the situation in Syria on phone call. Heavy fighting around Hama as terrorists try to break into the city. So, it's just too much happening. It's hard to keep track of. So, what are you guys saying? Dutch do Anglo coup? Any chances of some fun comments in Kiwi Farms thread? I'm not following that. Will you do more streams? Yeah, I hope to. Guy's complaining he just submitted research proposal on North Korean Chinese relations, arrest Parliament. North Korean TV starts. Yeah, let's go for this. Back in the good old days. South Korea's military says only the president can lift martial law. So we are pretty much in a complete deadlock here. So yeah, it is confirmed. Police and military have withdrawn from the Parliament area. So that can only mean that some of their officers have pretty much sided with the Parliament over this. So it does look like the momentum is slipping away from the president at this stage. Looking for some latest updates where we can find him. People now calling for the president to be imprisoned. In order to maintain his own power. It does look like as fast as it's come in, the president is pretty much probably blown it. There you go. In the space of what, 4 or 5 hours, you get a coup attempt and a fail. It does look like the president has bottled it. What are you guys saying, chat? Well, what hot takes do you have on this? Fighter pilot top saint guy of Seoul currently leading mutiny against special forces. Is that legit? What do we got here? Defense official from the South Korean Ministry of Defense says that the military will maintain martial law until ordered otherwise by the president. So we are kind of in a strange legal technicality kind of period here. We haven't had a good flying coup like this in a while. I think I'm probably going to sit down today, later tonight, or maybe tomorrow, and work on this audio. I do know that my audio isn't up to scratch, whereas it should be. Do you know I could probably have done a stream on the situation in Georgia? Problem is just so much stuff like this is just completely fly off the cuff. But with the Syria stuff, trying to keep tabs on Ukraine and Russia, and now I've got this stuff. It's too much, chat. Might need to branch out. I might need to take on staff. Might need to expand behind a watch. Did you know that the Kim dynasty ruled Korea 1,000 years ago? Problem is like half of Korea, all Koreans have the name Kim. Did you really vote in the US election for legal reasons? I will not answer that. BMP free. Appreciate you if you did. What do Korean citizens think about this? What do they, from what I've gathered, they're mostly just completely baffled by this. From what I was able to translate, a lot of them are actually asleep. Because when this all started, it was like 10:30, 11 o'clock in Seoul, Korea time. So a lot of them were actually asleep on their way home from work. Probably a lot of them are going to wake up tomorrow and find this all happened and just be completely bewildered by it. The ones who were awake, like I said, they were just like baffled by it, came out of nowhere as far as they're concerned. I don't think they're particularly pro martial law, to put it that way. I've got a mission I need to wait for now. So, but now we're like in this very weird position where like it's like the entire thing is still going on, but like because of technicality. So because the president enacted martial law, he's the only one who can revoke it. So like despite the fact that the parliament has rejected it, you know, they don't have the actual legal mechanism to revoke it. And obviously the president isn't going to do that, so it's like the only real option here is the impeachment of the president and finding of a different, like finding a new president who will revoke it, or find the legal fiction in which to conduct it. Uh, what we got? Martial law. Yeah, no real updates there. Have a good day on Coup Watch. So I wait out this emission. Able to go outside yet, or is this emission still ongoing? Is this of note? What do we got here? Like your channel, but chat is boring. Oh, I'm barely in chat anyway, so I'll take the compliments where I can get them. Okay, we got some more reports coming in. What have we got here? Nope, just the same thing. Reporting again. And Connor Osterblad, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your second name there, for $5 2025, and to be wild. Yeah, not been a good decade for liberal democracy, to put it that way. Yeah, they've been racking up some L's, even if like this thing completely dies away and quote unquote democratic institutions are restored to their previous place. It is still a pretty big L that a fairly established liberal democracy such as South Korea pulls this shit just substantially, like just at will. It does seem that the president just like decided to go YOLO on this stuff with very little consultation. So die if I fall down. So I'm going to give it about another 5-10 minutes to see if we get some more updates about the event, with the situation in Seoul, and then I'll probably start to wrap up the stream, because this was very much completely off the cuff, impromptu. You know, like, in terms of my shit streams, this is one of the pretty shittier ones. What's going on with the French? I don't really know too much, but I believe that Michel Barnier's attempt at forming a government is about to collapse, and the French political crisis continues because they can't find any kind of working majority. Jail the parliament. Looks like they attempted to do that, but they didn't really go all in as they should have if they were going to do that. Fuck, do I get out of here? Okay, so in terms of Syria wise, like I said, I'll probably do a big proper stream in Syria again. Heavy fighting in Hama. Terrorists are slowly making ground around Hama. The army's in a bit of a pickle there. In eastern Aleppo, the army's consolidated its position a bit more. But there's big concerns about the situation in Hama city, where heavy fighting is currently ongoing. In eastern Syria, Americans and American-backed Kurdish forces are like vultures attacking the army and trying to effectively like land grab, while the Damascus government is in a weak point. So, but there is still sizable numbers of militia from Iraq pouring across the border. And it seems to be that the Iranians are about to start deploying some conventional troops, if that's Revolutionary Guard or if that is actual standing Iranian army units, which I think should probably be the better option politically. That's kind of very hot, fast take on Syria. So that was kind of the thing I was mostly paying attention on today until the Koreans decided to steal the show. What the fuck is this? There you go. Yeah. So, let's have a look, see if we got any more. Rebel sources keep saying that Hama has fallen, but the army disputes that. So, pardon me. Just doing a kind of a final sweep. Are you looking forward to watch Walt Disney's Snow White? No, not particularly. Didn't even know it was a thing. President probably spazzing right now, calling up to see who's loyal. If the president can't convince the military, that would be based. I think it's probably beyond that. If the army pulled out of the parliamentary estate, they've probably a sign of where things were going to go, because now that means all the legislators can start passing all kinds of various laws. Ultimately, they might be like legally meaningless, but in terms of like rallying people out into the streets, So I think that, yeah, I'm not seeing any other updates really, so I'm just kind of circling myself and talking points here. So I'm gonna pretty much start to wrap this up as a stream. So like I say, guys, if you aren't in the Telegram, that's where everything goes down. I'm throwing that link up into chat now if you somehow are not in my Telegram group. That is where the bulk of everything I do happens. And then there is my Twitter account, which I'm also throwing into chat now. And then there is also the Rumble, which I need to sort of expand a bit more onto. So please do go there, and thank you very much to the people who donated. Thank you very much. I need to probably upgrade, like, actually the quality of the shit I do, because I do want to start shilling a bit more, because I do want to get a bit more of an income so I can do a bit more and hopefully leave this fucking country. But that aside, let's have what's this saying? And a quick look. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much where I'm going to call it here. Thanks very much for coming in at such short notice. We've seen the coup through from start, potentially the finish, and I'll be giving updates on it in the Telegram as the night goes on. Probably try and do another stream at some point this week. I've got a lot of free time, so might do another Syria stream or something like that. So thanks very much for coming along, guys, and I will hopefully see you all again soon. So adios.
Sorry Bang Jago, ampun Bang Jago. 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 Yang lemah, merasa paling terbaik, tapi cara kalian licik, maka kita kaget waktu tidak merbaiki diri pandai. Jangan senang dulu, semua tinggal waktu. Ada yang manis, tapi itu bukan susu. Anak baru harus melihat, datang sekolah dia jagoan. Maaf sedang, sorry sedang, ampun Bang Jago. hijau berkarya, walau